Good afternoon. I'm waiting for you. Can we start? Thank you, dear representatives of the media. It has been on a number of occasions that we have announced, that we have informed you about the preparations and for this event and the challenges we are facing. So here we are today in Ohrid, witnessing the birth and the first breaths taken by the Prespa Forum Dialogue, the largest international conference ever organized in North Macedonia, gathering in one place the entire region, bringing together as well representatives of the European Union, representatives of numerous multilateral organizations, of regional initiatives, representatives of EU member states and of the USA. The most influential non-governmental organizations, analysts, representatives of the academia have come today in Ohrid and in Uteshevo. The Prespa Forum Dialogue has gathered them all, but it has also united them all. This is the idea of the forum to unite, and I'm pleased that I'm able to say that dialogues have started. This pleasant and dynamic image of journalists, my colleagues, politicians, ministers, diplomats, is exactly the image I had in mind while we were developing this platform, to unite everybody, to juxtapose our views, to deepen the dialogue. Today, I am indeed more than happy that we have succeeded in our efforts. Today, we have in one place presidents of states, prime ministers, more than 20 ministers, not only from the region, but also from Europe and the UN at large and from the USA. More than 80 foreign journalists covered these events, demonstrating thus its importance and attractiveness. Ohrid and Prespa will echo strongly throughout the world, bringing every message that will be sent out from here today and tomorrow. Ohrid, it is not by accident that we have chosen Ohrid as the venue for this event. Ohrid carries a twofold symbolism. We were here 20 years ago when the historic Ohrid Framework Agreement was signed that laid the foundations and opened the way for the next two agreements concluded later, the Prespa Agreement with Greece and the Treaty of Friendship with Bulgaria. We have built a platform based on these three agreements. These are the turning points on our path to building a democratic state, and the common denominator of all three agreements is that they have been reached by way of dialogue. It is these agreements that tell our authentic story and serve as an inspiration to establish dialogue under the Prespa Forum, which on its part serves as a platform to promote reconciliation, building trust, and advancing political dialogue. We have not resolved all problems. However, these agreements put the problems on the right track to their overcoming. The issues upon which we decide today will determine the future of the country the next 100 years, the future of the generations to come. The world speaks of our authentic story or stories. All these fragmented stories I have been hearing from different sides wherever I go, I wanted to put them, streamline them in one framework. I want this to be our recognized brand that will help us raise the profile of our country globally. I can freely say now that we have succeeded in doing this. All of you, our guests, are part of this story that will continue be told and developed. Immediately following this press conference, we will have the ministerial session, which should produce the most important messages, determine the most important directions, give the most important ideas. We will discuss diplomacy, international relations, geopolitical treaties, contemporary challenges. We will try to find the ways of inserting the missing piece in the puzzle and make Europe complete, which after all is the topic of this conference. If we're talking about missing elements, yesterday, in the eve of the Prespa Forum, we had a pioneering, or I would say a historic informal meeting with my colleagues from the region. We sat down together upon our own initiative, showing thus our maturity, that we do know how to debate and come to agreements. The B6 will be an informal traditional forum similar to the V4 or the C5 forum, which is so our intention is to establish an authentic form of communication similarly to what countries of the EU do. 2 days ago, I returned from the meeting of the Visegrad Group and the Western Balkan countries. All debates, whether it comes to debates with our partners in the EU or debates among us, ministers from the regions, have been dominated by the appeal or request that the Western Balkans be included in the debate about the future of Europe. I'm greatly pleased to say that with the Prespa Forum, the involvement of our countries in this important conference has started. The European External Action Service, as a European institution, is our powerful partner and strongly supports the panel. Tomorrow in the morning hours, it shall broadcast the platform of the conference or on the future of Europe. I would like to thank our partners to the civil society for their contribution so that we can start articulating our voice from here. Thank you for your attention. I would like to express my expectations and impressions from this largest conference that has ever been organized in North Macedonia, that gathered in one place representatives of the European Union, international organizations, analysts, and coming here in Ohrid. They are gathered under the Prespa Forum dialogue. It is not by accident that Ohrid was chosen to be the venue of this place. It carries twofold symbolism. It is the place where the Ohrid Framework Agreement was signed, agreement which is considered as the most important agreement helping us build a multi-ethnic society that today we are proud of. This agreement opened the way for the signing of another two agreements, the Prespa Agreement and the Treaty of Friendship with Bulgaria. We have developed this platform based on these three agreements, and these are the three turning points in building our democratic country. The common denominator of the three agreements is that they have been reached by way of dialogue. These agreements tell our authentic story. They consolidate arguments in favor of dialogue that will continue under the Prespa Forum dialogue platform. We haven't resolved all issues, but we are on the right track to do so. The decisions we adopt today will have a long-term effect on our generations. Last night, we launched a new regional platform It's a new format for cooperation of ministers of foreign affairs of the Western Balkans regularly, informally, in order to, with a view to enhancing coordination, cooperation, and improving the interaction exchange among and between our countries, our cooperation in the European integration process. So I would like to thank my colleagues, ministers, who accepted to be part of this initiative. For the first time, the region raises an initiative on its own to discuss topics that, of course, sometimes divide us, but also topics that unite us, enabling us to reach the gates of the European Union. The Prespa Forum dialogue will be remembered also for the fact that it marks the beginning of the inclusion of the Western Balkan in the discussion about the future of Europe, which has been requested by all Balkan countries. Thank you for your attention. I'm open for questions now. Katarina Neškova, Citel TV. Minister, we have heard in the deliberations in the morning sessions, Roth and Palmer, representatives of the most powerful countries, they express regret that Albania and North Macedonia haven't started negotiations, but they say that this undermines the geopolitical position of the EU and the USA, and they demand that all parties double their efforts for the entry of the Western Balkans in the European Union. Considering the discussions of other participants in this forum, are you going to shape new ideas here in Ohrid to resolve the dispute with Bulgaria? On the other hand, we don't see any official representatives from Bulgaria. This is the first question. The second question is about yesterday's statement of the Deputy Prime Minister of Portugal about the language. You did not react to this unfortunate statement. What is your position, and does the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has officially reacted? Thank you for your questions. I will start with the second question. I did not react yesterday intentionally because I wanted to first talk on the phone with my colleague Silva to hear his view on this statement, which rightfully so upset our public and society. What I can tell you from this good and constructive talk with the Minister Silva is that I took the possibility that on the last day of the Portuguese EU presidency, I expressed my appreciation on behalf of the government and our citizens for the sincere efforts undertaken by the Portuguese presidency in order to deblock this European integration process. The Portuguese presidency succeeded in proving that there is a solution, but we need more efforts, more talks, more dialogue, more understanding on both sides so that we can arrive at a solution. We have also discussed this statement for which the Portuguese minister expressed his regret, and he reaffirmed the position of Portugal that their position towards the language and all other issues, part of the dispute or differences with Bulgaria, are only those that are referred to in the written proposal they have put forth to Skopje and Sofia and member states. And that is the language formula, which and the negotiating framework will keep the proposal of the Commission, while Bulgaria would have a unilateral statement on the language. We would have a unilateral statement on the language. The European Union would just note that there are two different positions, that there are two unilateral positions. This is a creative solution which we believe could help address the sensitivities of both sides. Proposal of the presidency, and I'm saying presidency, not Portugal, because this proposal will be picked up by the new EU presidency, namely Slovenia. It's the only functional proposal on the table now. According to the last communications, there has been certain progress in defining the roadmap. As regards your first question, I think that the timing for this conference is good. You know that we plan to organize it on the 15th or 16th before the summit of the EU. At that time, we would have talked more about expectations and hopes. The fact that the forum is organized after the EU summit gives us an opportunity to reflect about what happened at that summit, about the frustrations owed to the decisions or not taking decisions at that summit, the disappointment of our citizens, and what are the next steps. Therefore, I believe that at this forum, we are openly discussing and considering what happened. Of course, we also talked how to move forward this process for the entire region. Obviously, there is no alternative. The topic of this conference is Western Balkans, the missing piece of the puzzle for complete Europe. It's not possible for the Balkans to have, in economic, political, cultural sense, to have any other alternative. The question is how to convince EU members that there should not be a hole in the middle of Europe, because that is a vulnerable point that could be the entry point for various types of influences, while we are the integral part of Europe.
Во однос на португалскиот предлог и унилатералните изјави кои што би ги имале од страна на Македонија и Бугарија, ме интересира од македонската страна дали би стоела само дека јазикот е кодифициран од 45-та или дека се зборувал претходно, а бил кодифициран во 45-та, затоа што има разлика. Благодарам.
Јас повторно ќе кажам, би го именувал како предлог на председателството, затоа што се менува председателството, но не се менува предлогот. Предлогот на председателството.
And the presidency is being changed, and not the country holding the presidency. We are only waiting for the confirmation that the language will be codified in 1945. Yes, you can have the floor. No. On the question on language and identity attributes, we have never discussed these issues on a bilateral basis. This question is only treated by the Portuguese presidency proposal. In Sofia, we only discussed the points in the roadmap, and the messages that I interpreted personally as a positive reply to our proposals is that content of the roadmap. However, the proposal by the presidency defines where that roadmap would be placed within the entire process, and once again, the other questions that you've mentioned. Another question from Canal from Canal 5 Televisia, you mentioned that the proposal will be taken over by the Slovenian presidency too. You've stated that officially today. Does that mean that the Slovenians would perhaps have amendments on that proposal, or maybe would come up with certain types of different solutions? We deemed the presidency proposal as a good foundation for a solution. It was not rejected by Bulgaria whatsoever, and we consider it to be still alive and ongoing proposal. And of course, it is the presidency that is the one that will identify the approach and determine the approach and how that would lead to dialogue. But from my talks that I had with Minister Loga, is the message that the Slovenian presidency will be actively preoccupied with this question that would be transferred to the summit that Slovenia will be hosting on the 6th of October. Minister, I'm here. One question from me, and I would like to ask you to be clear and precise without interpretations, seeing as we have not heard yet on the Macedonian side. What are the specific red lines of the Macedonian side when it comes to the dispute with Bulgaria? Is it the language being codified in 1945, or it is the Macedonian language as it existed prior to 1945? This is a very important question. And my second question is from the cabinet of Bulgarian President Radev. They stated that you have submitted even a written proposal too. You denied that, the government denied that. So who's right, President Radev or you? And if Mr. Radev is true, what did it contain? We will not be hosting, first of all, our dialogue with Bulgaria through the media. On the questions that we are discussing and questions that we are not discussing, we have presented to the general public on many occasions prior to this day. And the fact that in the last document that I received from the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bulgaria treats only questions that we have discussed to this date or that we could possibly discuss, prove that this is true, but we will continue via diplomatic channels, through the ministry. We will continue working on returning trust, returning confidence, on finding solutions, how to overcome the situation. I briefed you previously on what questions are covered by the Portuguese presidency proposal and what through our proposal. Sofia presented its idea on the points of the roadmap. I would once again confirm and repeat that the points that are being elaborated are those that are being discussed on the roadmap, but we are not discussing bilaterally on identity attributes, seeing as they are not issues that are subject to bilateral disputes. And that is my answer. Mr. Minister, after the Bulgarian veto in Brussels, the initiative for the Balkan Schengen area was even more reinforced. There was a conference between the region countries, and there was a meeting in Skopje too. At yesterday's informal meeting with the region foreign ministers that you had yesterday, did you discuss something on this initiative with the prime ministers that are not quite convinced in this initiative? I'm talking about Bosnia and Herzegovina and Montenegro. What is their position? The initiative that was called Mini Schengen zone previously and was not part of the discussions, and we discussed that yesterday on yesterday's meeting. We discussed the idea for creating an informal platform of foreign ministers that on their own initiative, without being invited by the European Union or any other institutions, will be meeting regularly prior to any larger international meeting in order to coordinate their positions, to come up in single voice, unanimously, on different issues that we all in the region agree on. This was the goal of yesterday's meetings, and I'm optimist, and I'm very pleased and I'm very confident in the future of this initiative. And I feel that we discussed very important issues that are important for all 6 countries in the region. And I feel that our impact will be and our influence will be even greater if we discuss things unanimously before the European institutions. Another thing that we discussed is the regional cooperation, market cooperation that incorporated a lot of elements of what was called previously mini Schengen and is now continuing in other forms. And I feel that by the end of the month we will have another summit where we will be discussing these things. And I feel that any regional initiatives can only make sense if it is only inclusive. But this does not mean that we should be convincing each other, that we should not be convincing each other and convince others that we need to have our own authentic initiatives in order to create a new image on a region, to build a non-fragmented economy which will be attractive to foreign investments, and it will facilitate communication and the flow of and movement of people and ideas, and would create the preconditions and prerequisites for accession to the European Union. Dragovski from Alsa Televizija. The amendments to the law on travel documents, making passports with validity periods to 31st of December being continuing their validity. Are you going to is this going to convince our citizens to return to the country or abandon the country? Does this mean that the law does not apply to everyone equally? Due to the pandemic, I will make it quite simply. A lot of people were not in a position to come to Skopje to renew their validity, the validity of their passports. No one in Skopje, neither are teams that are doing this regularly. We have an annual plan at the ministry. Teams from the ministry go to embassies and take photographs of citizens in order to issue them new passports. In China, we could not send a team, seeing as there was a quarantine for 15 days in China, and it was impossible to do that. Tens of citizens were left stranded that had their passports expired. And we did it over the course of the pandemic last year through a decree of the government, which through law extended the validity periods of expired passports. And now we made a proposal through the Assembly to extend that validity period and deadline. And we informed our partner countries that all our passports that are national passports that have expired continue to be valid up to 31st of December, but it is up to different countries whether they will accept it or not. We have information that the validity period needs to be included in the passports. We wanted for it to be removed, but we are seeing that measures are being removed or maybe a bit lessened, reduced on the pandemic. This was our attempt simply to facilitate the movement of citizens, but this does not mean that it is a panacea that will solve all problems. Thank you very much.